Okay, we're on to number 3 now, and it says, graph this out over here. And looking at this, again, I'm going to go to the whiteboard and try to think through this, and one step at a time as I go to the whiteboard. So let's write down some things that I do know. And what I do know, looking at it, I know that there's an absolute value inequality. And I'll write this over here. It's the absolute value of y minus, I'm going to get my eraser out to erase this prior problem. Minus the absolute value of x. Absolute value is going to be a little bit difficult, by the way, but I think I can handle that part. And the other part I'm looking at is also this has to be, this condition needs to be met. And this doesn't look too bad. I'm going to do one at a time. And I want to find out what x has to be over here. So looking at this thing, I'd say x squared minus 4, less or equal to 0. I'd factor it, I get x plus 2, x minus 2, less or equal to 0. I'd put a number line down. A number line, I'd put the roots down for this, which would be minus 2 and plus 2. Put a little shade those in, because that's valid there. And then pick test points, like between minus 2 and 2, I'd pick 0, and that certainly satisfies that inequality. And if you go the outside, like 3, that would not satisfy it, and minus 3 would not satisfy that. So my picture here is only going to be between, the x has to be on the interval between minus 2 and 2. So what I'm going to do is draw the picture. And I want to just look at, one step at a time, so to speak. So x, y. And what I want to do is just talk about the quadrants. So in the first quadrant, I hope you realize the first quadrant, x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0. Right? I know that to be true. So the absolute value of this would be y minus x less than 1. Right? I'm going to put an equality down now, and that would be y minus x is equal to 1. And I'm going to graph that line in the first quadrant. What would that line look like? Y equals x plus 1. So I'm going to say this is 1, and there's going to be a line that looks like this over here. All right? Now I want to point out that if I plug in a number there, I realize that this is an inequality, and we'll get to that later. But this line, fits this description pretty nicely. Now I'm going to go to quadrant 2 now. And in quadrant 2, the x is actually less than 0, but the y is still positive. All right? So what do you want to do over here? Let's just take a look at that and write this down now. So it's going to be y, because the absolute value of y is just y. But then it's going to be plus x now, right? Because we're doing the absolute value over here. And again, less than 1. And what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to write down y equals minus x plus 1. Well, I know what that looks like too. It's a simple line, and it looks like this over here. And that's slope of 1. All right? Let's go to the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, x is less than 0, and y is less than 0. All right? So what do you do over here? This would be minus y plus x less than 1. And we'll get to the inequalities later, by the way. Just going to put the equality down. What's that going to be? Minus y plus x is equal to 1. So what would you give there? You'd actually get x minus 1 equals y, which is also a pretty easy line to do. It's got a positive slope, and y-intercept of minus 1, so something like this over here. Let's do the next one. That's going to be the fourth quadrant. And the x is going to be positive there, and the y is going to be negative. So we're going to get minus y. Now let's see, you can get minus x now, less than 1. Let's put the equality down. Y minus x equals 1. Just want to get the line drawn first. And what do I get over here? Let's see. I'm going to say, let's see, y. I add y to both sides, and this would be minus x minus 1. Let me see if I did that right. Took 1 from both sides, minus x, add y. Yes, I got that. What's that going to be? A line slope minus 1 and y-intercept of minus 1. So I got this over here. All right? So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at those graphs of those 4 lines I just did. And I'm going to, basically understand that these are basically inequalities at this point. And what I want to do is just, kind of one thing at a time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at one thing at a time. I want to look at this inequality. And what I want to do, I know that inequality is in the first quadrant. And I want to pick a test point. And, a good test point to pick would be 1, 1. All right? And so if you picked 1, 1, that would be over here somewhere. You're seeing if it's true or not. And what do you mean by true? Is this true if I pick 1, 1? Well, 1 minus 1 is 0, and 0 is less than 1. So I'm going to say that this region over here would be shaded in the first quadrant, all right? The other thing I want to point out is that I've got to, make this a dashed line. Whoops, went too fast with that. I got to make this thing a dashed line over here. So I'm going to put this over here. These are dashed lines now, all right? And let me get my red pen out again and, kind of like understand that this whole quadrant here is being shaded in. I just did a test point over there, all right? So let's go to the next quadrant, which would be quadrant 2. And someone says, what test point are you going to pick there? I would pick the point, let's see, minus 1, 1, all right? And I'm going to plug into this over here. And 1 minus 1 would be 0, and that's certainly less than 1. So this thing gets shaded in. Before I do that, though, I want to get the check marks over here. Put this over here. It doesn't include the line, by the way. So let's go back to shading. And everything in that quadrant gets shaded in. Let's go to the third quadrant. And I want to pick a test point there. What would I pick? I'd probably pick minus 1, minus 1. And I plug it in over here. And let's see, minus 1, that would be 1, plus minus 1 is 0. That's certainly less than 1. So this gets shaded in. Oh, let's go back and do the checkers again. All right, let's shade now. I think you're getting the idea about the symmetry of this thing over here. Let's do the next one. And again, I'm getting a little better at this. Let me do my little checks over here. And let's take a test point. And what test point would I pick? I'd probably pick, 1 for x minus 1 for y. And we're in the fourth quadrant. So I said, and again, I'm looking at the inequality, by the way. So, 1 and minus 1. Yeah, that's going to work out too. And this gets shaded in. All right, we're just checking these 4 different quadrants here. And I got my picture, and we're done. Thank you.